Hello, my name is Hans George Campbell, and welcome to part 1 of my electronics assembly series of videos. I've always been fascinated with video games and with computers. The very first video game that I ever played was Pong, which came out in the 70s. My very first computer was the Commodore VIC-20, which I had hooked up to an old black and white TV. I remember that. And my first complete computer system was the Commodore 64 computer. Okay. And as a hobby back then, I used to go to Radio Shack and buy these books that had all these interesting electronics projects that you could build. And that was my hobby back then. And Radio Shack sold all the parts and stuff. I mean, back in the 70s and 80s, Radio Shack was a really cool store. It was one of the places to go to, especially if you were into the electronics hobby. I mean, as a hobby, you know, building stuff and repairing like old radios and TVs and things like that, you know. Radio Shack was the place to go. And so that was my hobby back then, you know, building these electronics kits. And in fact, I think I've got one of the books. Let me get it. I think I got one of the books. Yeah, this is one of the books here. It's one of the books right there. And let me zoom out a little bit. Well, and then you could, it had all these, like, you know, that was an example of what I'm talking about. You could get, the Radio Shack sold different books like this, where you could build all these, I mean, it taught you about electronics, and you could build all these circuits, you know, and it was really cool. But that was my hobby back then. You know, that was my hobby. What, you know, one of my hobbies, besides model railroading and rocketry and tropical fish and parrots and raising exotic finches, and oh yeah, I had all kinds of hobbies back then. Slot car racing, you know, and oh my god, you know, microbiology and oceanography and zoology, and oh my god, I had all kinds of hobbies. I was into all kinds of stuff back then. Anyway, to continue on with my story. When I first moved to Portland, Oregon, way back in 1981, one of the first jobs that I got was I was working for a small business named Tables and Chairs in Beaverton, Oregon. And my job was to restore and to refinish antique furniture. And I liked the job because when I was in school, junior high school and high school, I was in wood shop. I loved wood shop. And I found out early on that I was a natural at woodworking. You know, in fact, even today I have my own woodworking shop here as part of my shop right here. It's on this side over here. In fact, I'm looking at all my woodworking stuff over here on this side. But yeah, I've always liked woodworking as well. So I enjoyed my job, you know, restoring and refinishing antique furniture. And this was Tables and Chairs in Beaverton. They were famous because a lot of the movie people, when they came to Oregon or Washington to film movies and TV shows, if they needed antique furniture, Tables and Chairs was one of the first places that they went to get their antique furniture. Okay, And so I did this job for about 2 years, and the owner of the company and we became friends, you know. And so one day he said, Hans, let's go have breakfast. And this was a first. I mean, as far as breakfast, we usually had lunch and dinner, but never breakfast. And he said, let's go have breakfast. I'm going to treat you to breakfast today. And so I said, okay, you know, I could use a good breakfast before starting work today. And so as we sat down, and we were waiting for our order, he told me, he said, I've got bad news for you, and I've got good news for you. The bad news is that you're fired. No, nothing wrong with your work. You're a great employee. You're my best employee. I love your work. You've done a good job for me for the past 2 years. But I've noticed something about you in the 2 years that I've gotten to know you. You are a natural at computers and electronics. And so the good news is even though I'm firing you today, I'm going to take you to these different electronics companies in Beaverton, Oregon and Hillsboro, Oregon. And you are going to fill out the applications or drop off your resume to these companies. I'm going to help you get an electronics job today, because I feel that that is what you should be doing with your life. I mean, you are an excellent woodworker. You are very good at carpentry and fine craftsmanship, you know, woodworking. You're very good at that, but that's not your calling. I could see that, because you've repaired my TV, you've repaired my computer, you've repaired some of my electronic stuff that I had laying around the shop, and I noticed you are a natural when it comes to this kind of stuff. And this is what you should be doing with your life. So I'm doing you a favor by firing you today, and I'm going to help you get into what you're supposed to be doing. And so that's how I got started. Okay, and I did get a job that day. One of the companies that I applied for was NEC of America in Hillsboro, Oregon. It was a large Japanese electronics company. And the way the buildings were situated, they had two plants, Plant A and Plant B, with a center building, which was mainly security and the offices and things like that. And you had to check in that center building before going to one of the plants. And I worked in both plants. And one of the things I remember working on when I worked at NEC was the disk drives for the Atari ST and the Amiga computers. I remember actually being on the team that made those disk drives. Yeah. If you notice, I mean, if you ever open up one of your Atari ST computers or your Amiga computers and you find an NEC drive in there, I built that drive. I made that drive. Well, my team built that drive, those drives. Yeah. But I remember, okay, I knew that I wouldn't have any problems doing soldering and board work and assembly and things like that, because I did it as a hobby. And also I'm German. And the Germans are known for making, you know, for building some of the highest quality stuff in the world. And so I'm very proud of my German heritage, and I try to always live up to that heritage by doing high quality workmanship. And even here in my shop, I adhere to strict German quality workmanship standards. I don't go by American workmanship standards. No, it's too low for me, for my shop. I do German quality workmanship standards, which are much higher. Much higher. Yeah. Some of the finest stuff in the world was made in Germany. And I'm very proud of my German heritage, and that has followed me into my career. I mean, I worked in the electronics industry for 25 years as an assembler. Now, okay, one of the first jobs I did at NEC, and this is something I wasn't prepared for because I've never done this, was I was placed on a conveyor belt line where there was a conveyor belt and you had people sitting on both sides of the conveyor belt. And each person had a job that they had to do. And there was dots on the conveyor belt. And that's where you would put your board after you were done with it. And the conveyor belt was usually set between 20 seconds to 60 seconds. Yes, you heard me right. You had that much time to get what you're supposed to do done and put it back on the conveyor belt by the time the next board came to you. You would basically pick that board up, put your board on that dot, get your work done, and that's what you would do all day. And I remember for the first few days I had a hard time with that. I couldn't keep up. It was going way too fast for me. I wasn't used to high-speed assembly like that. And so lucky for me, the line coordinator, she took a liking to me. And for some reason, I don't know why, but she saw something in me. She saw my potential, and I'm lucky that she did. And so she pulled me aside and she said, "Hans, I've been watching you for the past few days, and I notice that you're having a hard time keeping up. Well, I'm going to help you with that, because I think if I help you, you are going to be my finest worker." And I said, "What?" She said, "Yeah, I see that in you. I've been watching you, and I'm going to tell you what you've been doing wrong. First of all, you have your stuff spread out too far from you. It takes you too long to get to everything." And so she sat down with me and she showed me, you need to have all your stuff in an arc, within arm's reach, to where you can very quickly reach everything. And right there in front of you. Also, I noticed that you didn't have your parts lined up in the order that you use them. You need to do that. Okay, look at your paperwork and set up your parts the way, the order that you're going to need them. That also speeds you up. And I realize that it's going to take you a little while to get your muscle memory. And she explained what that was to me. After you do things, a repetitive job for a while, your muscles actually develop a memory for what you're doing. And you'll just automatically do it without even thinking about it. And so I realize that you haven't achieved that yet, but you will. And so after sitting down with me and training me, personally training me for a few days, within 2 weeks' time, I was her fastest assembler. I was the fastest person on that conveyor belt assembly line. And I was so proud of that. But apparently a lot of people, they complained about the conveyor belts. And so NEC stopped using them for the most part. And they set up instead these workbenches, and everybody got to sit down in front of a workbench and do their work. And I was so happy when they did that. I mean, even though I wound up being the fastest person on the conveyor belt assembly lines, I didn't like it because it was very stressful. It was a very fast-paced job. And at the beginning of each production day, there was a meeting in the morning for about 10 or 15 minutes. And the line coordinator or the supervisor would tell us what was expected for that day. And we usually had to do we averaged at least 500 boards per day. I mean, per 8-hour shift. That's a lot of boards that we had to have done and ready to send to shipping by 1:30 in the afternoon. Those 500 boards had to leave our production area and go to the shipping to allow them to get it all packaged and dealt with so that it can go out, I think at 3 or 3:30 UPS. And FedEx would come pick up the boxes and ship them out and stuff, you know. But yeah, I remember that. It was stressful. It was very stressful. But eventually I was moved to just a normal electronics workbench area. And that's where I worked for the rest of my career. And I worked for different electronics companies because back then you didn't get hired for a lot of your electronics jobs. It was temporary work, and you would apply with a temporary agency that handled those contracts, and they would call you up on the phone and say, "Hey, Hans, we have a job out here at Fujitsu in Hillsboro. They need someone for doing board stuffing or soldering or whatever, and would you be available to start work Monday?" And I say, "Sure, yeah, you just sign me." I would say, "Okay, we want you there at 7 p.m. in the morning." Well, 6:30 the first day, because you know, to get you set up and everything. But after that, it'd be your shift starts at 7 a.m. in the morning. And so, yeah, I got to work for all these different electronics companies, and I really enjoyed my work. I really did. I enjoyed my work. I looked forward to going to work every morning. I remember one interview, because I went to college in Florida for electronics, and I'm a certified electronics technician, and I'm also qualified to be an engineer's assistant. And one interviewer asked me, maybe they noticed that on my resume, you know, they said, "Oh, well, I noticed that you went to college for electronics, and you're a certified electronics technician. Why aren't you a technician? Why don't you want to apply for a technician job? They pay at least 2 or 3 times more than assembly." And so I explained to them, I said, "Yeah, but I tried it for a while and I didn't like it." "Well, what do you mean you didn't like it? It pays more money." I said, "Well, money's not everything." "What?" I mean, the interviewer looks at me like, "What?" Yeah, money's not everything. If you're not enjoying what you're doing, it's not worth the money that you're getting for it. And so I explained to this person, I said, "Look, I'm the type of person, I much rather make $10 an hour." I'm not saying that's how much I made. I'm just using these, I'm throwing these figures out there so that you understand where I'm coming from. And this is what I told the person that was interviewing me. I much rather work a job that only pays $10 an hour that I really enjoy doing. I actually look forward to going to work every day. I really love the job. Than working a job making $100 an hour that I absolutely hate. I cannot stand that job. Now, for most people, they're the exact opposite. They'll take that job paying $100 an hour because they're in it strictly for the money. And that's the reason why over 80% of all people hate their job. And they don't realize that you know, how much stress that puts on your body. Working a job that you hate every day. And I refuse to put myself through that. So even though I didn't get paid as much as a technician would get paid, because I am a qualified technician, I really enjoyed my job, and I think that was much more important. And also, through the years, I'd say within 5 years' time, actually a little over 5 years' time, I became known as one of the best electronics assemblers in the world. Now, I'm not saying this, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, I'm not trying to brag. I'm telling you this so that when you're listening to me, when you're watching these videos and I'm showing you how to do all this stuff, you know, as far as electronics assembly, you'll know that the person that's teaching you is one of the best electronics assemblers in the world. I know what I'm talking about. And you're being trained, you're being taught by one of the best in the world. Okay? I've worked on top secret government projects behind closed doors. I've sworn to secrecy, and I had to be bonded. I've worked on military equipment. I've worked on weapons. I've worked on medical equipment that was used to save hundreds of thousands of lives. I've worked on stuff for NASA, including the stuff that they're using right now in the International Space Station. I built a lot of the stuff that they're using up there now. My team, we built that stuff. I never will forget another interesting job interview that I had. They were putting together a 10-man team to build the guidance systems for these missiles that would be used in war. And there was over 300 people that applied for the job, and that was being interviewed a week. I never will forget this. And so when it was my turn, they called me into the interviewing office, and they talked to me, and they were impressed with my resume, my experience, electronics experience. And they asked me, how would you feel about working on stuff that would be used to kill people? Stuff that would be used to kill thousands of people, possibly hundreds of thousands of people. And I looked at the interviewer. There was like a 3-man team. I looked at the interviewers and I said, well, I just build the stuff. That's what I enjoy doing. I enjoy making the stuff and building the stuff. And as long as it pays me a paycheck, I'm fine with it. And they smiled at me. That was exactly what they wanted to hear. Most of the people that they interviewed failed that question. They were basically looking for someone that didn't really care. Because they knew a person that cared about building something that would be used for killing people, they would not do as good a job. Whereas a person like me that could care less, does it pay a paycheck? Do I get to do what I want to do or what I enjoy doing? That's all I care about. I don't care what the stuff's being used for after it leaves my production area, And that was exactly what they wanted to hear. So I got the job. I was one of the people that was chosen for that top secret 10-man team. Now back then I couldn't tell anyone what I was working on, but now all these years later I think it's safe to tell you that I was working on the guidance systems for, I think there were some nuclear missiles and also regular missiles that were in the submarines and other rockets that were being used by the military. And my team built the guidance systems for those missiles. Other interesting projects that I've worked on, my team, because by then I was a line coordinator, we worked on stuff that NASA was going to use to study human reproduction in space. Now, apparently they were going to have a couple go up there and have sex in the space station and see how zero gravity, your weightlessness in space, how that affects that. And my team built all of the instruments and stuff that they're using for that, as well as a lot of the other experiments that they're working on up there. My team built all that NASA is using right now. But yeah, I worked on a lot of interesting projects through the years, and I've really enjoyed myself. I was always looking forward to go to work. I was always gung-ho, I didn't have to be at my workstation until 7 a.m. in the morning. But I set my alarm clock for 4:30. You're probably wondering, why would you set your alarm clock for 4:30 when you don't have to be at work until 7? Well, I'll tell you why. The first alarm was at 4:30. That was just to wake me up from deep sleep. The second alarm would go off at 5 o'clock. That would wake me up. That's when I would get up out of bed. I would either take my shower, or I'd wash my face, shave, brush my teeth, and brush my hair and whatever, I'd get cleaned up, ready for work, put my clothes on and stuff. And then that would take me till about 5:30. At 5:30, I would have my breakfast. Yes, I'd have my breakfast. I don't start my day without breakfast. My body needs its fuel to work efficiently. Okay? And I would brew me a pot of coffee. I was not one of those stupid people that would waste, $57 a week on Starbucks. No, I was never that kind of person. I was never a lazy, stupid person. I would get up early enough in the morning to where I can make myself a fresh pot of coffee. Okay? I would pour myself a cup to drink, to have with my breakfast, and I would pour the rest into a thermos bottle. I'd put my sugar and my cream in there, it'd be mixed up, and it would stay hot until about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd have fresh coffee all day. For my morning break, and for lunch, and for my afternoon break, I'd have fresh coffee. I'd take a nice big thermos bottle, of coffee with me. Yeah. Didn't have to stop at Starbucks. Didn't have to waste all the money. The average person, believe it or not, spends around $57 a week on Starbucks coffee. Just coffee. These people are stupid. They're out of their frickin' mind. Because they're too frickin' lazy, yes, lazy, to wake up early enough in the morning to make themselves a pot of coffee and to pour it into a thermos bottle and take it with them. And these are the same lazy people that I had to work with in the electronics industry. They made my job a lot harder. Now you may think that being one of the best electronics assemblers in the world, that would make my job easy, but no, it actually made it more difficult. Because a lot of people did not want to work with me or work around me. I was a lot like Steve Jobs. That kind of personality, And people, they don't like working with leaders. They don't like working with people that have high IQs or whatever. People that are gung-ho. They're ready to get their job done. They know what needs to be done, and they do it. They don't waste time. They get the work done. So a lot of the people that I worked with, they didn't like me. But that's okay. I didn't care if they liked me. I wasn't there to win some popularity contest. I was there to do a job and get it done. So management and upper management and my supervisor, they loved me because I got the work done. And that's what they cared about. Because that's what makes money, is getting the job done. And that's one of the things I was very good at, was getting the work done. I remember when I worked at Fujitsu, I started working there. I was a temporary. And we were working on these boards, and we were supposed to get out a certain amount each week. And the assembly team was not meeting the production deadline. They just weren't meeting the production deadline. And what was holding up the deadline, the boards being shipped out, was the stupid line coordinator and the supervisor that was forcing us to examine these boards under a 20-power microscope. And so one day in the afternoon, I remember, the main supervisor, the boss of my boss, had a meeting with the whole team. Now keep in mind, most of these people were permanent employees. I was just a temporary. I'd been there for like 2 weeks. And so he asked everyone, he said, hey, we're not meeting our production deadline, and we're fixing to lose our customer because of this. Do any of you have any ideas that will help speed this process up so that we can meet our deadlines and we can keep our customer. Because if we lose this customer, I'm going to have to shut down this team. That means all of you are out of a job. Oh yeah. So, you know, some of the people spoke, the line coordinator spoke, and then finally, I looked at the supervisor because he's very intimidating. So I was kind of afraid to talk to him. I said, "Sir, I know I'm just a temporary, and I've only been here 2 weeks, but I think I have the solution." He says, "Well, speak up. I don't care how long you've been here. I've seen your resume, Mr. Campbell. I know you're good. So I'm very interested in what you have to say." And so I said, "Well, sir, I don't think we need to use 20-power microscopes to examine these boards, these surface mount boards. All we need to use is a lighted magnifier with a rectangular glass optic lens, a 5-power magnifier, and that's plenty of powerful enough to do a quick scan of these boards to make sure there's no shorts, no problems, and we can, instead of it taking 20 minutes to do each board, we can examine each board in only 5 minutes." And boy, the supervisor loved that idea. He loved that. Cutting the time down to only 25%. Oh yeah, he loved that. He said, "You know, Mr. Campbell, we're going to try that." And so he had the line coordinator supervisor remove all the 20-power microscopes and install 5-power lighted magnifiers on every workstation. And it worked. We were able to meet our customer deadline. But ever since then, ever since I made that suggestion, both the supervisor and the line coordinator hated my guts. Now this is the kind of stuff that I have to deal with in the electronics industry. I mean, it's like one huge soap opera. If you think that you're just going to go in there, clock in, do your job, clock out, and go home, oh hell no, you're in for a rude awakening. The electronics assembly industry is like one big soap opera, and you need to learn how to navigate those waters. Trust me when I tell you that. At first I wasn't very good at it, but eventually I got really good at it, navigating these soap opera environment, you know. And so Fujitsu offered out awards. And one of the awards that they offered out, and this is after I've been working at Fujitsu for over 6 months, was the Quality Workmanship Award. And how you get that award is you have to do 6 months with 0 errors. No errors in your production, 0 errors, perfect job every time for at least 6 months. And I did that. And I have the pin. I have the pin and the certificate in my Amiga computer room. It's on my main smock, the pin that I have. You'll see when I put on my other smock, you'll see that pin. It's a Quality Workmanship Award pin, gold-plated and whatever, and I have the certificate, the frame certificate to go with it. And I won that award. Keep in mind, I was still just a temporary. And there was permanent employees that had been working there at Fujitsu for 10, 15 years. They never got this award. Especially the line coordinator and the supervisor. Oh, they hated my guts. They were gnashing their teeth. That's how much they hated me. So the following Friday, when I went to pick up my paycheck from the temporary agency that I was working for, they said, "Hans, Fujitsu called and they don't need you anymore, so they don't want you coming back." And I said, "Why?" And my supervisor looked at it at the temporary agency because they said that you were doing lousy work and you were showing up late and you weren't doing a good job. And I looked at it and I said, "Yeah, you know that's a lie, because the following Friday, that's when I got that award, Quality Workmanship Award, the pin and the certificate. And I took those into the temporary agency and showed my boss. She was really impressed because none of her temporaries ever won that. She knew that I was good. And so I look at her, because this was a week later when they fired me. And they came up with all these lies. She said, I know they're lying. They just don't like you because you won this award and they didn't. I understand what's going on here. It's the politics. And I'm sorry, that's just the way it is sometimes. You're one of my best workers. You don't have to worry about it. I'll have another job, electronics assignment job for you by next Monday. Okay? I mean, by this following Monday. I'll call you probably tomorrow with another assignment. So just have a good weekend and get ready to work Monday or Tuesday morning. And that was it. But yeah, stuff like that, I had to deal with stuff like that all the time. Oh my God, and women that worked in the electronics industry. If you're a man, especially a handsome, good-looking guy like me, you know, tall, 6'4" guy, and you come in and work in the electronics industry, which is female-dominated, oh yeah, they're going to be all over you. Oh yeah. And they're always trying to ask you personal questions. And so a lot of women are troublemakers. They'll use that as ammunition later on against you to get you fired. Okay? Or women are competing for my affection. And I don't pick any of them because I don't date women I work with. Oh yeah, and that causes a whole bunch of problems because then all the women wind up hating my guts because I didn't pick any of them. Oh yeah, I had to deal with that. That's what I'm talking about. The politics in electronics assembly is insane. Now women don't have to deal with that, I mean, as much as men do. But if you're a man and you're working in the electronics industry, electronics assembly, oh yeah, you're going to have to deal with some major politics. Trust me. I know I did in the 25 years that I was doing the work, you know. But other than that, I really enjoyed my 25-year career in electronics assembly. I really enjoyed that job. A lot of people think, you know, stupid people, think that it's not a skilled job. And yes, it is. If it wasn't a skilled job, then why did I have to attend so many classes to learn what I know how to do today? Anyway, this is the end of the first part of this series. I hope you enjoyed this little story of mine that I told you. You know, I mainly wanted to. The main reason why I told you all of this is, like I said before, it's not to brag. It's not to toot my own horn. It's to let you know that I've done this work for 25 years. I'm a professional. I'm one of the best electronics assemblers in the world. And I'm going to prove that to you in these upcoming videos. And so you'll know when you start watching my videos on electronics assembly that you're being taught by a professional. You're being taught by someone that knows what they're doing. Okay? And if you ever need your Amiga computer repaired, and you want it done right the first time, and you don't want to have to send your Amiga computer all the way to this guy in France, you can send your computer to me, and I'll repair it for you. I usually charge a certain set fee, no matter what the problem is. You know, I think it's like $50, just a standard service fee. And then according to what the job is, usually you only have to pay for parts, you know, is how I do it. And also what I'll do is while I'm repairing your computer or recapping it or whatever, you know, I'll make a video and I'll post it on my YouTube channel so that you get to see me repairing your Amiga computer or whatever computer you send to me to have it repaired, whether it be a Commodore computer or an Atari computer or Atari ST or a vintage Macintosh or Apple computer or a vintage IBM PC or compatible. I repair them all. And you get to watch me repair your computer or recap your computer on my YouTube channel. So, yeah. There have been a few people in the forums, some of the forums, that don't like me. And because of this, they have been spreading lies about me. That I'm some kind of a scammer, or I cheat people, or I've stolen from other computer collectors or people that are in this hobby, and that's simply not true. And if you allow me to, I can prove this to you. You know, send me your computer for repair or recap, and I will prove to you that no, I'm very trustworthy. I've never scammed anyone in the computer industry or whatever, or with their computers. I've never stolen anything from anybody. You know, that these are just lies that some people are spreading about me on the internet because they're jealous of me. They're envious of me. These kind of people, they like to be the center of attention, and they think I pose a threat to that. Especially when I was on Amiga Org, a lot of people didn't like me because I would quickly put them in their place, and I would tell them right there in the forum that most of you people, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And they don't. I still visit Amiga Org, you know, from time to time to see what's going on there. Oh yeah, I'm still there. It's just now I'm in the shadows. I'm in stealth mode. You don't know when I'm online. But I watch you. I read all the comments and stuff like that, and I just shake my head. God, these people are stupid. I mean, most of you guys on Amiga Org, you really are. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're puffed up with ego. And, oh man. Like for instance, okay, a person will ask a simple question about how to do something or how to solve a problem that they're having with their Amiga 500, their Amiga 2000. And instead of answering their question, you start telling them about, well, you don't need that computer. I mean, I've got an Amiga 3000 or 4000 or 1200, and you need to get that, and you need to buy this for it and get this for it. What does that got to do with answering the guy's question or solving his problem? Nothing. And so I would come on and I would see the person's question, and I would actually answer the question. And then you people would chip in and act like I'm a stupid dumbass. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. No, that's not true. Most of you are the stupid dumbasses, and you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And I put you in your place real fast, because I do. I know what I'm talking about. Okay? And then when you people started spreading those lies about me, about cheating people, or ripping people off, or stealing computers from people, I put you in your place then too. Because I said, look, if you have any evidence that will stand up in a court of law, I want you to present that evidence right now on Amiga Org. Pictures, whatever you have, present that evidence on Amiga Org right now, or shut the fuck up. Because I'm getting tired of your lies. And that's when I was kicked off Amiga Org. As soon as I said that, apparently they complained to the moderators that they kicked me off Amiga Org. I've never been on back since. I mean, yeah, I go on to read the posts from time to time, but you people are a bunch of dumbasses. You really are. Most of you. You don't realize that you lost a valuable member of your forum. When you kicked me off of Amiga Org, you lost a valuable member because of your stupidity and because of your pride. Well, anyway, I thought that I would address that too in this video, this part 1 of this series. Okay? So, and the only reason why I said this is so that any of you that you're looking for somebody locally, especially in the Pacific Northwest or on the west coast of the United States, you're looking for somebody locally that's close to where you live to repair your computer, you can always contact me. You can always send your computer to me, and I promise you, I would do a very good job on it. And I will make a video of me actually repairing your computer or recapping it. And I will narrate the video as I'm working on your computer. I promise you that. And eventually you people will start realizing that, hey, no, Hans George Campbell is not a scammer. He's actually an honest person. He's a good guy. He says some off-the-wall stuff sometimes. Sometimes he makes statements that I might not like, but he's actually a good guy. He's repaired my computer, several of my computers. He does an excellent job. He's never ripped me off, never stolen from me. And then you'll start realizing that these people that have been talking about, these few people, handful of people have been talking about me in the forums, they're liars. They're gossipers. They're troublemakers. Don't believe them. Okay? Anyway, that's the end. This is the end of part 1 of this electronics assembly series of videos. Stay tuned for part 2.